Set? Okay. Well, good morning. Pardon me. Good morning. I would just like to make one very brief comment about yesterday, just to say that I found yesterday the first National Day uh, with respect to reconciliation and to be something that was very encouraging and a very moving experience. It was encouraging in respect of how many people took part in one way or another in many places across the city. It was also encouraging that there was a much broader base of information I think that people have now. People are more broadly informed about some of these issues that weren't covered in days gone by in school. I was with my kids last night, and they told me they had gone to stand in these long lineups, and they showed me pictures of these long lineups in front of stores to buy an orange shirt. I think that says something when you see that level of engagement, and so I was very encouraged by that. I was, of course, moved because I had a chance yesterday to meet and to listen to a number of additional survivors and to hear their grace, their courage, their patience was something that was quite extraordinary. These are very strong people. And I think as well, though they're heartened by the fact they have a sense of hope that somehow the events of the last while, tragic as many of them are, um, also mark a turning point. And I'm proud of the fact that I was able to say to them yesterday that this very council agenda that's starting this morning has some items on it that reflect tangible, real action, not per se on the issue of residential schools and survivors of same, but also just on the issues of how we have the kinds of relationships that we have and the kinds of support we're providing to our Indigenous here in the City of Toronto. So the council will start in a short while, and we'll be adding a report from Dr. Davila to the council agenda today, recommending the extension of the city's mask bylaws and other public health protections to help continue the fight against COVID-19 and to see it through to the end, but see it through fall and winter period, which could bring their challenges just in the context of weather and course. I expect that that report would be voted on this afternoon. And it simply extends bylaws that require people to wear masks or face coverings in enclosed areas that businesses and other organizations have open to the public, and in enclosed common areas of apartment buildings and condominiums. As the report notes, and as we've all seen, masks work. Masks work to help us in the fight against COVID-19 and protecting the tremendous progress that we've made so far. They help reduce the transmission of COVID-19 indoors, where distance sometimes can't be maintained. And I think the broad majority of the public are supportive of these measures, find these measures not to be too intrusive, and are supportive of their continuation as long as public health advice suggests that should be the case. Given the continued significant spread of the Delta variant, Dr. Davila is recommending the extension of these bylaws until January 2021, when the City Council will meet during that month, and they can be reviewed once again. And she will also, of course, conduct a monthly assessment of that situation and will inform us directly, public, what her disposition is in that regard. It should change. I want to thank the vast majority of people who continue to do the right thing and wear masks when they're out about. I think they have come to recognize this provides a degree of protection for them, but equally importantly for other people who they encounter. It does protect our progress, and it does allow people to go a more normal way of life while the Delta is still a threat. Make no mistake, the best weapon that we have to fight against COVID-19 and the Delta variant continues to be the vaccines and getting vaccinated. We are making great progress on that front, with 80.8% of eligible residents now fully vaccinated and 85.8% of eligible residents with at least one dose. And the group in between, which total more than 100,000, we are continuing to focus on and work on. And of course, we have the Vax 25 initiative taking place tomorrow. And the objective of that is to make sure that across the city, we pick places in each of the wards to make sure that we can make the availability of vaccination as accessible to people as possible. These are areas deliberately picked where we need to drive up vaccination rates and need to make that as accessible to people as we possibly can. In the meantime, though, making sure people are properly wearing masks or face coverings in stores and other businesses, in common areas of apartments or condos, and even in the Rogers Centre and at other public events that are going on in the city, continues to be a crucial and important step that we can all take to help protect ourselves and each other. As I said yesterday during the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we are putting a very significant effort behind the creation of housing for Indigenous Torontonians. At our City Council meeting starting today, we'll be supporting the creation of 5,200 affordable rental homes for Indigenous by Indigenous, and we'll be doing this in partnership with Miswebik Development Corporation. Indigenous leaders told me directly in many, many meetings I've had with them over the last number of months that there was a need for the housing. Yes, it was probably the number one need they would mention most frequently to me in the course of those meetings. But also they emphasized to me the necessity of ensuring that Indigenous organizations were real partners in the development of this housing, and we are responding to that. They indicated that in the past we would move ahead on our own or with other organizations to develop housing for Indigenous Torontonians, but then at the same time there would be no involvement of and partnership with some of these organizations, and this will be done very much in partnership with Quebec, which is an excellent, credible organization with a track record. This agreement, which I expect Council will approve today, supports the creation of these new affordable rental units and supportive homes for Indigenous residents across the city. This is part of City Council's request that at least 20% of the $132 million to support the creation of affordable rental housing under the federal government's Rapid Housing Initiative should be allocated for Indigenous people through Indigenous organizations. My other key item today is City Council's approval of the implementation of Phase 2 of the federal government's Rapid Housing Initiative. This has proven to be an excellent initiative, both because it provides for considerable resources to be made available to us to help in the creation of supportive and affordable housing, and also because, by its name, Rapid Housing Initiative, it places time limits on us in terms of actually having those units available to people to live in within a shorter period of time than might otherwise be the case. This is a capital funding program, of course, from the federal government, which aims to create new affordable rental housing for people, people experiencing homelessness and marginalized people within a 12-month time frame. I was proud to advocate for this program on behalf of Toronto and other municipalities across the country because they're all in similar need, as is Toronto, and I commend the Government of Canada for bringing forward two significant phases. The first phase, which was a great success, and the second phase, which is now way, and this measure at Council today authorizes us to continue to move forward with the second phase. This shows what we can do when governments work together in cooperation with a focus on getting housing built, and this is especially the housing that is going to be made available to the most vulnerable people, including some of those who've ended up campus. In July, the Government of Canada announced Toronto's Phase 2 allocation with approximately $132 million and a requirement that goes with that of creating at least 233 new units of affordable or supportive rental housing. This funding, which Council will be approving today, will support the creation of new permanent affordable housing units through the construction of new rental housing, as well as the acquisition of land or the conversion and rehabilitation of existing buildings. In addition to this guaranteed allocation, the city has worked with Indigenous and nonprofit housing providers to submit other projects. We get a core base of funding, $132 million, and we have the eligibility to apply for further funding. We have applied together with nonprofit and other organizations to submit other projects to be considered by the Government of Canada. So it's possible that we will get more. In fact, the applications that we put in represent the possibility, if we can get the funding, of getting 1,000 more units provided for under the Affordable Housing Initiative, Rapid Housing. City staff also recommends, as part of all of this, that we approve the allocation as a city of more than $40 million in pre-approved open door incentives to support the creation of up to 1,000 more affordable housing units. It's often lost in the middle of all of this that the city itself, through deferred development charges, deferred taxes, and a number of other deferrals that we make, amounts otherwise payable by those who would develop, nonprofit and profit, these developers, we give those amounts that the city itself will end up, as part of our overall affordable housing initiatives, contributing hundreds of millions of dollars to making this housing available. And I'm very gratified at the progress we're making so far. So phase one of rapid housing will create 540 affordable rental homes. Phase two, if we move forward with it, will create hundreds more. And the bottom line is that the City of Toronto, with the help and support of the federal and provincial governments, is investing in getting affordable housing not just on the books, but built and lived in a time that I think is almost unprecedented as to how fast it's happening. The housing is being built in months, not years. And the Rapid Housing Initiative is helping the city to realize its 24-month COVID-19 housing recovery plan aimed at delivering 3,000 permanent and supportive rental housing availabilities for people who have been experiencing homeless. And I'm happy with that, although not content. We're going to try and find more and more and more that we can do to try and make sure that permanent housing is made available to who need it the most. So I will stop there and see if you have any questions for me today in advance of the council meeting or on anything else that is on your minds.
One question follow up and unmute you. First up is David Ryder from the Star. Go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Tory. Dr. Davila and the Toronto Health Board made a strong recommendation for the provincial government to include COVID-19 among the diseases for which school kids should have mandatory vaccination. Is that something that you've raised with the Premier or any other provincial officials, or will you be?
I have not yet raised it with the Premier. It just hasn't come up in our discussions. We haven't talked for a few days. But I certainly have indicated publicly, and I'm sure he sees my comments because I know I often hear back from him in regard to those one way or another, that I'm supportive of this. We for years and years, without incident, without much, blowback, and I think in the broad best interest of the health of children, vaccinated for a number of other things. And I think we just accept the fact that a lot of those, health conditions have been wiped out virtually because we vaccinate. And so the notion that Dr. Davila and the Board of Health would suggest that this one, COVID-19, with all of its dangers and all the lives it's taken and all the threats that it poses in many respects to people's health, but also to the economy, notion that it would be added, it comes as no surprise to me, and I'm supportive of that. And so I'm sure I will end up talking to him about it. We often talk on the weekends, and these are the kinds of things I make up a bit of a list to speak with him about. But I'm supportive of that, and I think he would.
Follow up?
Yes, thank you. Follow-up is we had the TTC union change its stance on mandatory vaccination. Haven't had the same opposition at all from the unions for QP 416 and 79, the other city unions. But we have had some departments lagging others, including solid waste and parks, forestry, and recreation, in a number of employees who have either not disclosed vaccination or apparently are not vaccinated. I'm just wondering what the next steps are and when do we start talking about potential penalties for workers who will not be vaccinated?
Well, first of all, I've been accepting of the fact that the challenge that exists for employees that work in departments like Parks, Forestry, and Recreation, where in many cases they never come to an office per se. They don't sit beside a computer where they deal with these kinds of things. They are dispersed by definition. Same with solid waste. They're in yards and working on the streets of the city, serving people each and every day. So I think it's been more difficult for us both to just get them to respond because they may not sit beside a computer, and to chat with them, or even chat with their colleagues about this and decide on the right thing to do. So we continue to work at that. And I will just say that, given that some of the deadlines are in sight for some of these things to happen, that the city manager and others involved in the public service are in the process of deciding on next steps. And I've been made sort of generally aware of what they're planning to do, and they will then deal with that on a kind of case-by-case basis. But let's look at the glass again as being, very much as full as it almost could possibly be, which is that the vast majority of public servants in the City of Toronto have disclosed their vaccine status, and the vast majority of them, I think close to 90%, are double vaccinated. And so I'm pleased at that, and we will deal in a sensible, sensitive way with all options on the table, as we've always said, with those who are taking a little more time, with the hope, and I'm confident that a lot more actually will, comply with the policy over the.
Thank you, David. Next up, we have Morgan Camp. And
Hi there, Mayor. The Supreme Court of Canada is set to rule on Ontario's move to slash Toronto City Council. What are you hoping to see come out of that ruling later this morning?
Well, you always hope you're going to win a case. I mean, we put this forward because we had genuinely held views that, in particular, this was done wrong. I can well remember sitting in the dark of a night in my office receiving a phone call the night before this legislation was introduced. And, when it was in the middle of an election without consultation, that didn't strike me, and still doesn't, as the right way to go about very significant changes to our democratic process and our democratic institutions. Having said that, we pursued the case. I am heartened by the fact that this case reached the Supreme Court of Canada. That just doesn't happen, in every case at all. In fact, about 10% of cases that are put forward for a consideration by the Supreme Court ever are heard by them. And so this was deemed important enough to be heard. So we'll see what the decision is when it comes. In the meantime, I will say that I have done my job, and I think everybody has done their job, in that we have forged a working relationship with this government, with things as they are with the council, and we're getting a lot done in terms of the kind of support they've provided and the partnership we've had during the pandemic, or on issues like housing and transit. So everybody has to move to do their work while court cases are pending. We'll see what the decision says today, but that's not going to stop me from moving ahead with the things that I have to move ahead with as the Mayor of Toronto: getting housing built, affordable housing, getting transit built, dealing with the economic recovery in the aftermath of the pandemic. So that's what I'll be continuing to focus on.
follow-up.
And if it does rule in your favor, Mayor, will you reintroduce 47 seats in the next upcoming election in October of 2022? And if so, how do you think it will or will not impact the city?
I'm not going to speculate on that. We just don't know what the court decision is going to say. I think what we best do is wait for the decision. We will read it carefully. Our lawyers will read it carefully. We will see what it says. In the meantime, as I say, I will focus on the council agenda that we've got going today, which is going to get thousands of more affordable housing and supportive housing units built, and address many other items, and continue to work in partnership with the provincial government on all of these kinds of things, including in particular economic recovery, the pandemic, and housing and transit issues. These are the things people expect me to focus on. That's what I will focus on. And the outcome of court decisions we will deal with, but I'm focused now on just getting things done.
Thank you, everybody. That's it for today. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody.